The sun rose softly over the quiet town of Abeni, spreading its warmth across the rust-colored roofs and sleepy mango trees. From a small clay house at the end of the dusty lane, Amira stepped out in her spotless white school uniform. Her mother had ironed it the night before until it gleamed like polished cotton. Amira held her exercise books tightly against her chest and smiled at her reflection in a puddle. Today was special. She had been chosen to lead the morning song during assembly, her first time in front of the entire school. Walk tall, her mother had said, and remember, white shows purity just like your heart. Those words stayed with her as she made her way through the narrow paths lined with hibiscus flowers and playful goats. The sound of school children's chatter floated through the air. Amira's feet moved lightly, her braids bouncing as she walked. When she reached the school gate, the bell was ringing. Pupils hurried into neat lines on the sandy courtyard. The flag flapped lazily in the morning breeze. Amira took her place in front of her classmates, cleared her throat, and began the morning song in her soft but confident voice. The teachers nodded approvingly. Her friends clapped and cheered. For a moment, her heart soared. She felt unstoppable, as if the whole world smiled at her. But sometimes life changes direction without warning. By noon, the sun blazed hot above the tin roofs. The classroom smelled faintly of chalk and pencil shavings. Amira sat quietly at her desk, copying a poem from the blackboard. The river never forgets its source. As she bent over her book, she felt something strange, a slow, warm sensation between her legs. She froze. Her heart began to race. She shifted in her seat, hoping it would stop, but it didn't. She swallowed hard, staring at the chalkboard, pretending nothing had happened. The bell rang. Lunch break. Laughter filled the air as chairs screeched and feet shuffled. Amira stood up and heard a gasp from behind her. Amira! A girl shrieked, "Look!" Your dress. Before Amira could turn, the class exploded into laughter. There it was, a red stain spreading across the back of her white uniform. The laughter grew louder. Some pointed, others whispered, and a few covered their mouths in shock. Amira's face burned. She ran out of the classroom, her vision blurred by tears. She hid in the small restroom behind the classrooms, shutting the rusted metal door behind her. Her body trembled. The more she cried, the more she wanted to disappear. Why me? She whispered. What did I do wrong? To her it was a mystery, an accident she couldn't explain. Moments later, the door creaked open. It was Zainab, her best friend. She didn't laugh. She didn't stare. She simply took off the long sweater she was wearing and handed it to Amira. Here, Zainab said softly, tie this around your waist. Amira looked up through her tears. Why? What's happening to me? Zainab hesitated, then smiled kindly. It's called your period. It means you're growing up. Every girl goes through it. You're not alone. Amira blinked. The shame inside her began to melt. Really? She asked, her voice small and uncertain. Zainab nodded. Yes, it's nothing to be ashamed of. In that moment, something changed. For the first time, Amira didn't feel cursed. She felt human, fragile, but not broken. The next morning, she refused to go to school. They'll laugh again, she told her mother. I can't face them. Her mother sighed and said nothing. But later that day, Amira's teacher, Mrs. Anam, arrived at their doorstep. She sat down beside Amira and took her hand. My dear, she said gently, you cannot let ignorance define you. The world can be cruel, but sometimes it takes one person's courage to teach others compassion. She smiled. Tomorrow, come back to school. I'll make sure your story becomes a lesson, not a joke. The next day, Amira returned to school. The whispers began again, soft but sharp. But before anyone could speak louder, Mrs. Anam called the entire school to assembly. Standing before the students, she held up a clean white cloth. Then, with a red marker, she drew a small dot. In the center, children, she said, is this cloth dirty? Many nodded, some giggled. Mrs. Anam smiled. Then look again. The red mark is small, but you call the whole cloth dirty. Why? Because you see only the stain, not the beauty that surrounds it. She paused, letting her words settle. Last week, one of you faced embarrassment for something natural, something every woman experiences, and yet we laughed. But tell me, what makes us human if not compassion for one another? Silence filled the courtyard. Amira stood in the crowd, heart pounding. This time, no one looked at her with laughter. Some of the girls even looked at her with quiet respect. From that day, everything changed. The laughter stopped, the whispers faded, and Amira began to hold her head higher than before. Weeks later, during morning assembly, she sang again the same song she once sang with pride, but this time her voice carried something deeper, strength. She had faced the kind of moment that breaks many, yet she came out shining. Her white dress no longer symbolized perfection. It symbolized resilience, the courage to stand tall, even when stained by life's lessons. As the sun set that evening, Amira sat beneath a mango tree, her books beside her, her mind quiet. She thought of Zainab's kindness, her teacher's wisdom, and her mother's love. Then she smiled, whispering to herself, "A stain doesn't take away the light, it only shows where it shines the most." Soft background music fades. In warm, hopeful tone, narrator's voice closing. If Amira's story touched your heart today, take a moment to think of every girl who has ever felt shame for something she didn't understand. Share this story, talk about it, and let kindness be the voice that drowns out laughter. And if you want more stories like this, stories of courage, truth, and African resilience, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more voices like Amira's to life. Screen fades to black with text. The day her secret stained the white dress, a story of courage and dignity.